could have the best scanner in the world, but if you do not have the software to compile all that data, you basically have a big fancy camera. Yeah, so I mean, there are many steps. Most of what you guys would see is just me scanning. Unfortunately, that is not all that goes into it.
Roughly a motorcycle on average, how long would it take to fully scan the bike? Because I said, hey, Justin, isn't it like taking a million photos? And you said,
yes, it
hey,
kind of
this is Laura from Outback Motor Tech.
And this is Justin from Jaws 3D.
So here we are. We just finished 3D scanning a motorcycle, which kind of made me think, hey, let's make a video about 3D scanning. So Justin, what are your specialties in this whole 3D scanning side of the world? What do you do exactly in the background?
So for the 3D scanning side of things, a lot of what we do is within the automotive industry. There are occasionally stuff or things that we do projects within the medical field, sometimes just one-offs for clients, but definitely the biggest part would be the automotive and the dual sport motorcycle industry.
Now, let's talk about the basics of 3D scanning. It's not obvious to a lot of people. Based on the dozens, if not hundreds of comments we get on social media, people don't know why we do it. So can you explain why we do 3D scanning?
So when it comes to 3D scanning, now this all depends on the kind of scanner you have, what range it is. There are many different scanners for different applications. We specifically scan these bikes for Outback because we are able to deliver 0.1 millimeter accuracy or 0.3 over a meter. For reference, 0.1 of a millimeter is about the thickness of a human hair. So the accuracy is quite there, which is perfect for designing custom parts.
I'm just going to add, from then on, when his job's done, we put the data into CAD software.
Yeah, so I mean, there are many steps. Most of what you guys would see is just me scanning. Unfortunately, that is not all that goes into it. There is a lot of work in the background for processing. We basically, how the scanners work is, to a degree, is taking many photos at once, and then we need to process all those individual files into one solid file, known as a point cloud file or a mesh file. From there, we can reduce it, the polygon count, get it into CAD so that we can start designing parts with that accurate data.
I did ask you a question during the scanning because I said, hey, Justin, isn't it like taking a million photos? And you said,
yes, it kind of is.
Or more than millions of photos?
It depends what you're scanning and the settings. Of course, scanners have different settings. You have low ranges and you have ultra ranges. Ultra ranges, that takes a lot of data at once versus the low, which would be more for, matte, big, simple objects versus things with small details is where you really want to get in there. And that's when you would want to use the ultra scanning settings.
All right. So now you have a 3D scanner that's worth a pretty penny. Would you please tell me a couple of specs about your scanner? Because some people love geeking out on that kind of stuff and the specs and details.
So the specific scanner we use for doing the motorcycles, we have a couple different scanners, but the one we use, the wireless one, which is the Leo, made by Artec 3D, based out of Luxembourg. We've been using their scanners for about 3+ years now. I personally am an absolute fan of them. They are a blue light scanner. And what that means is it uses blue light to scan versus other brands like Creaform that are laser scanners and they need tracking dots. And the thing with doing stuff like this is a lot of people don't like adhesive tracking dots on their stuff, on their nice cars, on their nice bikes. It's not very appealing. So we went forwards with the blue light scanner, and that's why you will see us spraying it. Usually you can actually still see some spray here. And what that does is it gives the surface a matte-like finish. When you have shiny or transparent surfaces, it tends to refract the light coming from the scanner, and it results in inconsistent data, which we do not want to deal with in any means.
Someone in the comments section jokingly said, hey, just make sure you don't mix it up with the primer white coating.
I wouldn't want to be the guy that's got to clean that up.
So now we know with many things in life, you get what you pay for. How about the 3D scanning devices themselves?
Now, in the last, 2 years, there have been an uproar of new scanners on the market. A lot of them base high accuracy, the 0.1 millimeter, 0.05 millimeter accuracy, which is phenomenal. One thing that I find is not shared online with people is the software that you are processing the data with. You could have the best scanner in the world, but if you do not have the software to compile all that data, you basically have a big fancy camera.
Now, the next question is, if you don't mind, giving up some of these secrets that you've been gathering over the years, aka experience. If somebody was to start out doing 3D scanning, what would be the do's and don'ts if you could sum it up, in a few sentences?
Get familiar with mesh files. They are most commonly used in Blender. They're also very commonly used in 3D printing because that is the resulting file. Get used to how they operate. Now, of course, it really depends on what you're doing with the scan data. Are you refining it to design products around? Are you scanning something to actually reverse engineer that part itself into CAD? Let's say the part you can't get anymore, or it just doesn't exist and you're custom making a part. That's where it can be super beneficial. So getting familiar with the file formats, the softwares, the A to B, okay, hey, we're scanning this, the scanning software to the design software, the CAD software, mesh editing software. It can be a variety of different things. The software, I would say, was the biggest hurdle. But once you have those kind of details and experience under wraps, I think the oyster is your limit.
Sounds good. Now, we started 3D scanning with you 3 years ago, and then it's been, I would say, like a gateway drug. And it led to a couple of things. One is 3D printing, which we got into because it's been very helpful for making prototypes, useful prototypes, which we actually set up a company for. It's called Okanagan 3D Printing. And now, would you please say a couple of things about industrial grade 3D printing itself, because we have some experience with that now?
We do. And it's been some phenomenal experience. It's been great using those machines. So one thing with our specific machines at OK3D is we specialize more in industrial materials. Now there are a variety of different printers. You have FDM, which is filament-based printers. You have SLA, DLP, etc., which are all resin-based printers. And then you have SLS, DMLS, and MJF.
But we decided on the highest quality possible, right? To get some good prototypes done.
Absolutely. So we went with specifically the Formlabs machines, the Formlabs Fuse 1 Plus, which is the SLS powder-based printer, and the Form 3BL, which is a large format resin printer from Formlabs as well. The resin printer, the accuracy on that is absolutely phenomenal. You wouldn't really use too much resin printing for, the automotive or motorcycle applications. That's more for, your miniatures, your medical devices, things that need high detail and are very tiny.
Okay, so you did talk about the scanning spray and why you use it, so that's clear to us now. You did talk about the post-processing, which is quite a lot of work as well. So the last thing I would like to ask is, what's the challenges and limitations of 3D scanning at the moment? We know it can change in the future because it's moving fast, but what are the current limitations in your opinion?
Now, limitations wise, of course, the scanner cannot scan what it cannot see. When you have hard to reach areas, scanner's probably not going to be able to pick it up in too much detail. So that's why a lot of times we have to disassemble parts, or parts of motorcycles, whatever it may be. Another limitation would be when you're processing the data. Sometimes when you're going through that steps, you miss a spot on a motorcycle, on a part, on a truck, whatever it may be. You miss a section of it. You can't really go back and scan it. I mean, sometimes you can, but you actually have to physically go and scan it. So paying attention to the data you're taking and recording before you even start processing it, before you finish scanning, just paying attention to everything, making sure the specific areas you want all have detail of it. If it's not showing it in the rough scan data, it is not going to show it in the processed file.
So one final question to you: How do you foresee the future of 3D scanning, especially now with AI taking such a strong leap? What do you expect, in the next couple of years?
It's hard to say. I mean, in terms of AI, because it's a physical thing you have to do, 3D scanning, it's more, you would have to really implement robotics, which a lot of people have already done through systems that Artec offers, and then also other companies, SPKs. I forget what the term is. I don't do too much of that. The nice thing about AI is it is built into the software, and of course as AI and technology improves, the faster turnaround rates are, the higher quality data ends up being once it's processed. AI is really going to help 3D scanning more on the software side of things than I would say the actual physical scanning aspects. But really, I mean, it is so hard to say with how fast things are advancing these days where it could be, not even in 5 years, but in 1 or 2 years.
Okay, so I promised that would be the final question, but one final bonus question.
Drum roll, please.
A motorcycle like the one behind us, which is a brand new KTM 39 Adventure R, roughly a motorcycle on average, how long would it take to fully scan the bike with, focusing on 60% of the details and the rest is just like a superficial scan, plus processing the data? How many hours would that take?
Now, roughly on a bike like this, without really taking off many parts, skid plates, rad guards, passenger foot pegs, fenders, without getting too crazy into disassembly, you'd only ever really do that when you need the data that is hidden by those parts. I mean, it depends on the size of the bike, but this bike, for example, took us about 3 hours. Processing traditionally usually takes about that, maybe time and a half, double that. It really depends on the data you're dealing with, how many how many points are in the point cloud file. The higher polygon count you're dealing with, the slower things are going to be. And that one goes back to one thing about the 3D scanning too, avoiding redundant data. So, you don't have to scan the same thing 3, 4, 5 times. Once or twice, go over it, do a safety check. You're good to go. But yeah, I would say around, for this bike, 3.5 hours to scan and maybe 5 hours to process.
Sounds good. Okay, I promise you no more bonus questions and all that jazz. But no, just kidding. That's it. Justin, thank you very much. I really appreciate you sharing your expertise with the viewers. And of course, the fact that you've been scanning for us for so long. So thanks, dude.
Anytime. It's my pleasure. Always awesome being out here working with Outback.